Good evening. I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. As the state's only nonpartisan voter education agency, Clean Elections is proud to sponsor these debates. Our mission is to ensure that you have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions about the issues that impact your life, and head to the polls with confidence. To make sure your voice is heard, please keep these upcoming deadlines in mind. June 22nd is the voter registration deadline, June 24th, early voting begins, and July 21st is primary election day. A quick reminder, all registered voters, including independents, are eligible to vote in the upcoming primary election. If you're watching this debate live, we want to hear from you. You can submit a question for the candidates at any time using one of the following methods. You can email debates@kc-a.com. You can text 480-769-9511 or phone 480-937-1253. Thank you for joining us and for staying engaged in our democracy. For more resources to help you prepare for the upcoming July 21st primary election, please visit our website at azcleanelections.gov. Enjoy the debate.
Good evening and welcome to the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Debate for Legislative District 3, the Republican primary. I'm Hank Stevenson, editor of the Arizona Agenda. I've been a political reporter here in Arizona for almost 20 years. Before launching the Agenda as an independent daily politics newsletter, I worked for newspapers big and small, from the Nogales International to the New York Times. I'll be your moderator tonight. First, you're going to hear from both candidates running in the Republican primary to represent the state Senate in Legislative District 3. Then we're going to move on to hear from two of the four candidates seeking the nomination to the district's 2 House seats in the State House of Representatives. The other two candidates, George Koloff and Cody Ream, chose not to be here tonight. LD3 encompasses big parts of northeastern Maricopa County, including Scottsdale, North Phoenix, Fountain Hills, Anthem, New River, Cave Creek, and Carefree. And remember, voters in this district will elect 1 state senator and 2 state representatives. And tonight's candidates are competing on the same ballot to make it through the Republican primary. Here's how tonight's debate will go. Each candidate starts with 90-second opening statements. Then we'll spend a few minutes getting to know who these candidates are as people. Then we'll dig into the core issues facing this district. We'll ask each candidate to explain how they would have voted on a real bill from this legislative session. And we'll finish with the 90-second closing statements. We're going to start with the Senate candidates. Then at about 7 p.m., we'll switch over to the candidates running in the House Republican primary. Okay, let's get to opening statements. Candidates, thank you so much for being here. The prompt is simple. Tell the voters who you are and why you're running. And John, let's start with you.
Thank you. Well, I'm State Senator John Kavanaugh, and it's been my privilege to serve this district in the legislature for the past 20 years in different mapping configurations. I was born and raised in New York City, and I became politically active at the age of 15. When I walked into the storefront headquarters of the Conservative Party of New York State, and I began to work for conservative causes and to elect conservative candidates. In both high school and college, I was active in several conservative youth groups, the Young Americans for Freedom, also the Young Republicans. And I advanced conservative causes while I was both high school student and a college student. Educationally, I received my BA degree from NYU in liberal arts. I earned a master's degree in government and politics from St. John's University. And then I went on to Rutgers University, where I earned a PhD in criminal justice. And the knowledge I received from all of those degrees has helped me in the legislature. I've been married over 50 years to Linda Kavanaugh, former mayor of Fountain Hills. We have 2 grown children, a grandchild, and we always have 1 or 2 rescue cats in our household. Occupationally, right out of college, I became a police officer. I was a police officer with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Police for 20 years. I retired at the rank of detective sergeant. Upon moving here to Arizona, I began teaching college. I first taught at Arizona State University, and then I moved over to Scottsdale Community College. And at SEC, I worked there full time for over 20 years. I eventually became head of the criminal justice program there. I also founded the forensic science program, something which I'm very proud of. And although I'm retired from my college teaching, I still do some adjunct courses, both at SEC, and I do a course on state legislatures at Arizona State University. I have an extensive political background beyond my activism as a student. I served for 2 terms on the Lafayette, New Jersey Town Council. Upon moving here to Arizona, I spent 4 years as a member of the Fountain Hills Parks and Recreation Commission. I then served 6 years on the Fountain Hills Town Council. And when an open seat developed in then District 8, I ran for the state legislature, the House, where I was elected. I have been in the state legislature for the last 20 years. I've been elected 10 times. I have almost always been the chair of the Appropriations Committee. I've also served as the president pro tem of the Senate, and I'm currently the majority leader. I have a lifelong A+ rating from the National Rifle Association. I have a perfect 20-year score on pro-life and family issues from the Center for Arizona Policy. And finally, my current turning point legislative scorecard for my voting is 100%. And I hope that you'll re-elect me and let me continue to represent you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Robert, you're up next. Take this opportunity to introduce yourself to the voters.
Yes, thank you. My name is Robert Wallace, and I am running for the seat because we need fresh blood in the system. We have a candidate, an incumbent here who's been in office for 19 years, the legislature. I myself first got into politics around 2001, actually, when 9/11 happened. I became very self-aware of what was happening with geopolitical issues. I was born in Michigan, raised in Jackson, which is also called the home of the Republican Party, because that is where the Republicans first named themselves Republicans. I moved here 5 years ago during COVID, and that was a big eye-opener for me because then at that point you could see where all the government overreach and the mandates had infected and affected everybody's lives way too deeply. And we had to look at where the levers of power were, where people were forgetting the base, their constituency, and creating a situation where essentially tyranny taking place all over. So upon moving here, I ended up getting involved in the Carrie Light campaign, working from her field office during after the primary of her gubernatorial run. I became a precinct committeeman. I joined Gays Against Groomers and became a state chapter lead for them, later becoming their podcast host. I became a secretary of the Log Cabin Republicans of Phoenix. And now I'm currently working at Turning Point as a regional manager for the McDowell Mountain region for their Chase the Vote initiative. So I've done about 5 years of activism on parental rights and keeping the gay agenda out of schools, the trans agenda, protecting kids from this ideology. And so now and I ran for town council of Fountain Hills last election cycle. So now I'm running for state senate here in LD3.
But first, a quick reminder to you voters watching, you can submit a question for the candidates at any time. Email debates@kc-a.com. You can also text it to 480-769-9511, or you can even call it in to 480-937-1253. We'll do our best to get to any questions that come through tonight. Okay, we're moving on to the About You section. This is not about your policy positions, but rather what shaped you, how you think, how you'd work once in office. Each candidate has about 90 seconds to respond. No rebuttals in this round, please. And the first question, let's go to you, John. Let's go to you, Robert. Tell us about the hardest period in your life. How did you get through it? And what did it teach you about yourself? Robert, you're up first.
Thank you. When I initially went to college at Full Sail University in Florida, I had a tumultuous experience. I experienced many different things, and I lost my possessions at one point, and I had to move back to Michigan, and that was a low point in my life because I went from getting into a college, actually graduating before my high school graduating class had gotten out of high school, to being in college, to deciding then to drop out. I was there for computer animation, and I decided I didn't want to spend 90 hours a week in front of a computer. And I moved back to Michigan. And in the process, I lost my possessions, and I was in my mom's attic. And that's where I had a total coming to Jesus moment with my life. And in that time, I found the depths of my appreciation for religion and spirituality, for metaphysics, and I found The Secret, the movie. You may have heard of it. It had a profound transformative effect on my life, and as a result, I started to rebuild myself from the bottom up, from the inside out. And from there, I began to learn through a study in comparative religion and meditation and spiritual practices, what it meant to be a human. And so for me, finding Christ, finding my faith in God is what made me, what gave me direction and what taught me what was important. That's how I found out and figured out I was a Republican. The value systems as far as how they aligned. And that has been the driving force, the really the attainment for the kingdom of heaven for me personally, and that is expressed or is reflected in my outward efforts and activism in trying to make the world a better place.
Okay. Same question to you, John. Tell us about the hardest period in your life. How'd you get through it, and what did it teach you about yourself?
Well, I've been blessed not to have too many personal tragedies. However, 9/11 was extremely traumatic for me. As I mentioned in my intro, I was a Port Authority cop for 20 years. And during about 5 of those 20 years, I taught in the Port Authority Police Academy. So I knew almost every Port Authority cop, even like almost 2,000, because I had taught most of them, many as recruits. And the Port Authority policed the World Trade Center. Now, I was at the first World Trade Center bombing in '93, where only, I think, one person died, the wake-up call that we ignored. And I was already retired. But when the real 9/11 happened and the towers collapsed, among the many rescuers who were killed were 37 Port Authority police officers. And I knew almost all of them. It was a very tragic, emotional scene for me to watch, which, by the way, is why I'm a bit upset at something Robert said in his intro. He said that 9/11 was one of the moments that shaped his political career. On his website, he has a posting that no planes hit 9/11 at interdimensional travel, but the 9/11 comment he made, especially since it's a real sore point in my life, I had to comment on.
Okay, we did say no rebuttals this round, but I do feel like I should give you a quick moment, Robert. We'll get into this deeper as the debate progresses, but if you want a moment to just respond to that.
Yes, 9/11 had an impact on everybody, not just John Kavanaugh. And as far as me and my opinions and my assessments of what happened, the whole world had been shaken with concerns about consistencies in the story since the very beginning. So there's no connection between having had a traumatic experience or a wake-up call as to what was going on in the world and figuring out what it was moving forward into it. John does have weirdwallace.com. I think it's a cute website, actually. It's a reposting of much of my old radio show that I had. It's about spirituality, esotericism. If you go to stopkavanaugh.com, you'll actually learn about the policies of my opponent instead of personal attacks. And I think that's what people are more interested in hearing about. So 9/11 isn't owned by anybody. It had a different impact on everybody. And what we had coming out of it is different. I never denied 9/11 happened, but the official stories don't make sense to most anybody. So I do stand by
Okay,
that.
let's keep this moving. I want to get a little bit of a sense of how you guys think as a lawmaker or potential lawmaker. So let's say a bill hits the floor that a clear majority of your district wants you to vote yes on. You strongly believe that you should vote no. Walk us through that decision and tell us exactly what you say to your voters the morning after that vote. And I believe we started with Robert last time. So John, why don't you kick this one off?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if anybody could ever know how a majority of the voters feel about any issue. I mean, there's not really polling like that, but I get the gist of your question. I campaign as a conservative, free markets, limited government, pro Second Amendment. And I believe that I owe it to my constituents to vote the way I told them I would vote. Now, there may be some situations where a majority might disagree with my position, but sometimes that's because the voters don't have all the facts. Sometimes that's because the news coverage was wrong or slanted or biased or incomplete. So I think I've been here. I've been elected 10 times. I tell people exactly who I am, what I am. I'm a conservative, pro-life Republican. And I vote that way. And I think I'm being honest with them when I do that.
Okay. Same question to you, Robert. If you believe, you should vote one way and your voters are signaling strongly that you should vote another, how do you make that decision?
Well, it comes down to the fact that I would have been selected as a representative to vote their conscience with the privileged information available. As John said, sometimes people don't know everything that a legislator might be privy to. So it might be a matter of fact that I have insight into the subject that says we need to go this way, and that's what leadership is. We don't know everything that the president is privy to when he makes his decisions, but he was elected, and we trust his decision making based on the fact that he has that insight and he has this capacity. And so it would be really a matter of explaining the logic of what needed to be done based on what I knew and what the public didn't know, and bridging that gap.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the main portion of our debate. These are questions crafted around the issues that voters have told us they care about most. We've got a lot of questions here, so we're going to do our best to get to as many as we can. But first, let's talk immigration a little bit. I want to set up a scenario here that is played out in other parts of Arizona. Imagine a city council in your district wants to block a new ICE detention facility from being built within city limits, and say the legislature can override them. How would you vote? And let's start with you, Robert.
Well, I think it's important that we respect the local municipal boards, the town councils. They have to have some say over their areas, especially when it comes to introducing new facilities. That said, the enforcement of the policies is a different issue. So if ICE needs to go and enforce the law, that's one thing. If they need to go and set up an encampment, that's a different thing. So I would respect the local area's consideration around what's placed in the area and the hardships that might bring to the people. I mean, what's the point of having a council there if we're not going to listen to the people who live there? So yeah, I would parse those issues out.
Okay. Same question to you, John. Do you overrule the city council?
Well, first of all, the city council has no authority to stop a detention center from occurring. The federal government is not beholden to local zoning ordinances, so they couldn't do it in the first place. But beyond that, there are matters of local concern and there are matters of statewide concern. We allow local governments to deal with local matters of concern. But when it's a statewide matter of concern, like Second Amendment gun rights, for example, right? Or that all red light, all traffic lights should be stopped. When it's a statewide concern, the legislature has preempted local governments. And in fact, in SB 1070, a bill which I was a co-sponsor and helped write, the iconic anti-illegal immigration law, in that bill, we preempted local governments from not cooperating with federal immigration enforcement. In fact, I, along with Senator Peterson and Speaker Montenegro, we filed a 1480, TJ Shope rather, we filed a 1487 complaint to stop Tucson and Pima County from not cooperating with ICE. 1070 makes it very clear. Local governments must cooperate in immigration enforcement with the federal government to the fullest extent allowed by federal law. And I would do everything in my power to prevent any local sanctuary city, town or city from stopping immigration enforcement. And I'm shocked that Robert Wallace isn't backing ICE and immigration enforcement.
Okay, Robert, you want to respond at all?
I actually did not say that, Mr. Kavanaugh. For everybody else who's listening, I said that they will not infringe on ICE's ability to continue their enforcement. We're talking about establishing facilities in that area and taking consideration of the people who live in that area, not creating sanctuary cities or anything like that. The people want a smaller government. They don't want this establishment government overreach that says, I'm going to come in there and do whatever I want. There are ways to get facilities and places that are that work for everybody, but that has nothing to do with the enforcement of ICE coming in and getting who they need. So I'm not saying that we should not help ICE, but there is a line and a limit and a difference between all this.
Very, very quickly, Hank. So ICE can pick up people and then what, drive them around all night? There's no place to put them. You're obstructing immigration enforcement. It's a disgrace. You shouldn't be a Republican.
I disagree with that assessment. I think there's ways to do it without putting your boot down on places. I'm not saying that you don't put facilities in places. I'm simply saying have some consideration for the areas that you're putting it in and not be dictatorial and tyrannical about how that's done. That has nothing to do with the enforcement of ICE and their ability to do their job, even if they have to go about it a certain way. We can't have a government that goes out of its way to tell everybody what's going to happen and nobody gets a second say over it.
I stand by Trump's immigration enforcement. I stand by ICE. I will not obstruct them in any way.
Okay, I think we got a good glimpse into both of your views on this. I want to move on to elections. This is another big issue for Republican primary voters. Many Republicans have called for ending mail-in voting and moving to a single-day, hand-counted paper ballots method. Most Republican voters in Arizona vote by mail. So the question is, would you vote to end mail-in voting? No excuse mail-in voting. And if so, what do you say to the Republican voters in your district who depend on it? John, let's go to you first.
When I go door-to-door campaigning, I only go to high turnout voters, people who voted in two out of three or three out of three of the last elections. I rarely see anybody under the age of 60. It's kind of depressing, but that's the way it is. And I see many people who are in their 80s and 90s, and many of them have volunteered to me, please do not get rid of the mail-in ballots. We would have a hard time voting. Mail-in ballots are terribly popular. President Trump urged Republicans to do mail-in balloting this last election. I have supported all sorts of legislation to make mail-in ballots have greater integrity, to get people off who have moved or died so they can't be voter fraud. So I believe in secure mail-in ballots.
Okay. Robert, how about you?
I take the position that we need same-day voting, in person, hand paper ballot, IDs. We create so many loopholes when we create this whole system of mail-in balloting where people can And we've seen this in documentaries like 2000 Mules. You see where there's open opportunities and loopholes to interject loads of ballots that have no paper trail. And all of a sudden, we get the 2020 election all over again. And all of a sudden, a race completely flips. We need to make sure that we cut out those loopholes. We used to be able to do it and know who was the winner within the same day. I think the only people who don't want that and want these week-long turnarounds are people who have some vested interest in tampering with the system.
Okay. Anyone want some moments to rebut, respond?
Yeah. I like to
We can move on.
rebut if I could. Just real quick, I also believe in same-day voting. I'm not going to close polling places. I have no problem with that. And in terms of making the results known better, I've supported legislation that does not allow the dropping off of early ballots on election day. That's what causes the big problem when thousands and thousands of people who didn't mail it in drop it off at the polling place on election day. Then they've got to be taken back to the center. The signatures have to be verified. That's what slows it down. And I voted for legislation that says you have to drop it off by Friday, or you can't drop it off on election day. So we can have secure mail-in ballots, and we can also have vote counts on time. And they're secure. Justin Heap, former legislator, Freedom Caucus member, who's now our county recorder, he gave me a tour of the way they verified the signatures to make sure that the person who sent it in is voting. And I stand by Justin, and I stand by both day of election voting and the convenience of mailing ballots from my constituents.
Okay. Let's keep this moving. I want to ask you both two different questions here. I think these have both been alluded to, and I want to face them straight on. John, this one's for you. You've been in the legislature for almost 20 years. Arizona has term limits that say a lawmaker can only serve 8 consecutive years in each chamber. You've adhered to the letter of that law by switching chambers several times, but some people think that's breaking the spirit of the law. So two-part question. One, do you support the idea of term limits? And two, what do you say to the people who think that you're breaking of the spirit of that law and should retire?
Well, first of all, I believe in term limits, sincerely. I believe in 2-year term limits. Every 2 years, I run for election, and if my constituents and voters don't like me, they term me out by not electing me. Those are term limits. I do not believe in term limits where after so many years, you throw the person out. That removes experienced people who have background knowledge and skills, right? It removes them from the legislature. Who fills the vacuum of knowledge? Staff members, lobbyists. So who do you want to run your government? Do you want to have seasoned legislators who've been there, done that, and know what's going on? Or do you want to have people who really don't know what's happening so that they can be maneuvered by staff members and lobbyists? I'd go with the seasoned legislatures. And when people want me out, they can vote me out.
Okay. Robert, you want to chime in on that one at all?
Yeah. The problem is that when a politician is in office for an extenuated period of time, he becomes friends with lobbyists. He becomes entrenched in the system. He becomes part of what we generally call the swamp. He really manages decline. He manages the status quo. We need fresh blood. This is a government, a citizen-led government. We need fresh blood in the system for that reason. A politician can't help but become connected and entrenched in a system of patterns and routines when they're in with the same people day in and day out. And that's why we need fresh blood. This idea of term limits being 2 years, and that's actually what it is I think a willful overlooking of the spirit and the point of what a term limit is for. We have millions of people in this state. There's no reason why we should get hung up on one person year after year after year. So I think that average people need to step up and run, because if that's the only reason why certain people are staying in, I meet people every day that I think are qualified and smart enough to do what John's doing, and And I think it's for the safety and the interests of our state that we have fresh blood in there.
Quickly.
Yeah, first of all, I want to make it clear, I don't like people referring to me as like career politicians. With the exception of the last couple of years when I retired from my college teaching job, every minute that I was a town council person in New Jersey, on the Fountain Hills Town Council, and almost my entire legislative career in legislature, I had a full-time job, either as a cop or as a college professor. So I'm not a career politician, I'm a citizen politician. And again, who do you want running your operations, staff and lobbyists, or do you want to have knowledgeable politicians? Knowledgeable public servants.
All right, Robert, this one's for you. As you mentioned, John has created a website highlighting some of your YouTube videos in which you talk about some pretty out there ideas like lizard people and interdimensional travel. So I want you to explain to the voters what you're saying in that YouTube channel and tell voters who don't believe in lizard people why they should take you seriously.
Absolutely. So the nature of that website was to skew what I was saying, exaggerate what I was saying. Actually, if you listen to the clips that he posted, and a lot of people, they just listen to headlines, but go listen to the clips that he posted and hear them in my own words and the context in which I'm saying them. I take a very spiritual, scientific approach to these matters. The existence of interdimensional life is more and more becoming a point of fact for society. Science is coming out with that. It's becoming a mainstream issue. We can reduce it to lizard people or whatever we want. But even NASA, even our government is taking up the issue of extraterrestrial life right now. Okay. With regards to everything else that I'm talking about, Trump just signed a bill recently, promoting the further research into psychedelic research. I mean, these things are becoming mainstream. And this is what I mean when we say we have people who are old-fashioned in this new age. We need to be forward-looking. We need to be ahead of the curve. There are spiritual realities affecting life. That's just a fact, and for me, and for a lot of people. And we do this whole tinfoil hat, skewering of people to stigmatize these subjects so that nobody talks about it. I'm not having that. I've had many, many different profound spiritual experiences in my life, and that is really tied to my whole spiritual quest for the kingdom of heaven. That is my first love, is, finding myself spiritually. And yes, you experience phenomena which is unconventional and strange and unusual, but these things are, all kinds of weird things are being reported by people all across the world. So with that said, you can make it the whole argument that I've had some experiences of very odd, weird nature in my past, like a lot of people, and make that my whole personality when it's only a sliver of the things that have happened to me. But that would just be an effort of ill will to attack my character, to attack my personality, when we should be talking about policy.
Hey, John, I appreciate you waiting patiently. You want to respond?
Yeah, look, he has some really bizarre beliefs that other people don't have. If you sit on the toilet for extended periods of time, bathroom spirits will appear to you. And then he said that he is a reincarnated black gangbanger, which explains much of how he is today. Now, of course, I was a retired cop, so I can't rule out the possibility that maybe I arrested him someday, and that's why he's running against me. But his beliefs are strange. But one of his postings is downright ugly, and that is an anti-Semitic post that he posted, which says that Jews are responsible for pornography, hookup culture, LGBT culture, and the COVID vaccine. And under that section, he is listed a whole series of doctors and medical people involved with COVID. After each name, this is on his website, the word Jew with stars of David next to it. This is the kind of stuff that was appearing in Nazi Germany when Hitler was first taking over. This is dark, dangerous, vicious stuff. I mean, it's not all lizard people and Teletubbies. He's got a dark side, and people should know about the anti-Semitism.
Robert, you want to respond to that?
Yeah. So this comment about bathroom spirits, let's start there. If you listen to the clip that John's got on the website, I clearly said that this was something that was brought forward by Swedenborg, Emanuel Swedenborg, 16th century Christian mystic. It goes back hundreds of years. This is according to his esoteric spiritual insight. I was literally quoting him. So this is another one of his intentional misquotes. This one particular post that he's referring to of this anti-Semitism refers to something that was shared on accident, where I was referring to somebody, messaging somebody who posted it, asking why they posted it. I'm a former Messianic Jew. If you go back, I'm using my personal Twitter that I've had for 10 plus almost decade. I've got 15,000 posts on there, and you find one post that is off. This isn't a series of posts. This is one single post, and he's trying to make that my entire character. I love the Jewish community. I love my Jewish friends. Like I said, I used to attend a Jewish synagogue. So that is just a maligning of itself. And actually, he's doing more to promote that post than that retweet ever did by talking about it here, by putting it on the website. That has had probably 1,000-fold effect than that it did sitting on my wall.
Very, very quickly, people
Very
should
quickly.
know that you posted anti-Semitic material that is vile. People need to know that. And if you want to claim that, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed of having interest in Judaism. I used to be a Seventh-day Adventist, and from there I went into Messianic Judaism because I recognize a Saturday Sabbath, just like Charlie Kirk did, actually. And so, I'm sure there's weird posts that I didn't mean to post. When you got 15,000 posts, but if that's what you've got, I mean, for the most part, I've tried to be very careful with what I put, and I have unconventional beliefs of all kinds of things because I'm an independent thinker. I do critical thinking of my own. I don't ask experts what I'm allowed to think. I don't fall in line with whatever the prevailing thought is. Absolutely not, and I'm not ashamed of that.
Okay. Got all that out in the open. All right, let's move back to some core issues that the voters care about. Housing, for one. Towns across your district have watched neighborhoods turn into Airbnb commercial zones, which has driven up housing costs for working residents. Arizona law currently blocks cities from capping the number of short-term rentals. So what I want to know is, would you vote to return that authority to local governments and allow them to cap the overall number of Airbnbs that can be in any one city? And John, let's go to you first.
Yeah, and I've supported and even sponsored such legislation. Sedona is a prime example where like 40% of their downtown housing is Airbnbs, to the point where their town employees, their school employees can't live in the town. But I have always had a problem with Airbnbs. We legalized Airbnbs, maybe 12 years ago, going way back. I was in the Senate at the time. And having served 6 years on the Fountain Mills Town Council, I knew the dark, dirty secret of municipal politics. And that is, if it's not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, there's virtually no code enforcement. There's virtually nobody to go out there on noise complaints and parking and litter and all that stuff. I knew this was going to be a disaster area with party houses. I was the only senator at the time, the only senator who voted no to legalize those Airbnbs. I knew it was going to be a problem. It is a problem. And we still have having problems reining it in. We've made small inroads into regulation, but we still need to give more control to local governments, especially the party houses. My wife was mayor of Fountain Hills 4 or 5 years ago, when a local resident were pleading with her that there was party houses, like 20, 30 people, loud music, cigar smoke late into the night, and there was no code enforcement. And the cops don't want to get involved in that because they don't consider it to be police work. So yeah, I would give more authority to them. Absolutely.
Okay. Same thing to you, Robert. Should we be allowing cities to cap the number of Airbnbs that go up?
Yes, and we should, because the town councils, the local government knows how to keep the culture of their environment and the vibe of their town, the way that the local residents want it. And so it is necessary that we respect the local municipalities and their opinion on these issues if we're going to govern non-dictatorially. And so for that, yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
And by the way, unfortunately I need to plug in my computer because I thought I had juice for hours, but I don't. I'll be right back.
Okay. We'll stall for just a minute here. I'll let John go next on the next question here. And in fact, just in case we have time for one or two more, I'll repeat that phone number that you can call into or text to ask a question of the candidates. Debates at kc-a.com is the email address. If you're texting it in, text it to 480-769-9511. And you can even call it in to 480-937-1253. And John, I want to ask a question about education here.
Okay.
This is something that's currently going on at the Capitol. This is a big part of this year's budget fight is Prop 123. This is a Ducey era mechanism that takes money from the state land trusts to pay schools as part of a plan to repay schools necessary funds because of a lawsuit many years ago. The legislature let Prop 123 expire last year and has not renewed that. So I want to know, one, do you plan to renew Prop 123? And two, would you send a clean renewal to Arizona voters? This is $300 million of school funding that we're essentially backfilling from the state general fund. As far as I can tell, because people can't agree on what this should look like. And the simplest solution would be a simple resend this to the voters as it is, renew this. Tell us your position on renewing Prop 123, or what do you demand in order to send this question back to the voters?
Yeah, well, first, I want to thank you for explaining that the schools have not lost any money. When Prop 123, which transfers state trust land money to the schools, expired, well, I'm going to take that back. We're still giving schools state trust land money. What expired was the enhanced extra amount. And that extra amount, we upped the amount that we give, was about $300 million a year. And we had been giving the schools from the general fund that money. So there's no shortfall in education. Prop 123 is not the slam dunk everyone thinks it is. It only passed by a few percentage points. There were a lot of people who were concerned about increasing the amount of money taken out of it. A lot of people think that we should allow the corpus, the amount in the fund to grow big so that it becomes almost like an endowment and we can use the interest of the schools. I didn't have a problem with increasing it as 123 did, which was just a little bit, I think up to like 8%. However, the governor kind of poisoned the atmosphere. She wanted to go over 10%, which literally would have started to shrink the principal of the corpus. And she also wanted to bond using 123 money, which would have dedicated part of the distribution going out, I think, 20 years to pay off those bonds. And then, of course, these groups that are trying to get rid of ESAs by ballot initiatives, they caused a problem because now suddenly members were saying, we'll only be okay with 123 if we protect ESAs. And it just got so mired in politics that we just could never get a consensus to put it forward. Maybe next year, but I don't see it happening this year.
Let me ask again, would you vote for a clean renewal? Send what we sent to the voters 10 years ago back to them, get this money rolling to schools without having to drain it out of the general fund, which, as you well know, is under a big strain right now.
I would be open to that, but only if there was not a threat at the ballot that these groups are doing to ESAs, where we might need to use 1, 2, 3 to protect ESAs. Because I believe ESAs are phenomenal. They're like charter schools. They're choice. They make education better and greater in Arizona.
I don't know if I quite understand that.
I would consider next year a straight up Ducey style 1, 2, 3 if the initiatives did not go on the ballot that people were proposing to dismantle or weaken ESAs. If that were to happen, then perhaps the 1, 2, 3 needs to go up with some sort of ESA protections next year.
Okay. Okay. Robert, same question to you. Should we be renewing Prop 123? A clean renewal? Would you vote to support that if you were in the legislature? I don't hear anything. John, do you hear him?
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, solid.
Thank you. As I understand it, I think yes. I think the idea of putting money and contributing towards teachers' pay is something that needs to be addressed while we do protect the ESAs. The ESAs are very important. The Prop 123 put money toward some more teacher pay. The problem with teacher pay right now, I think, also maybe I should mention, is while a lot of people don't really care to support that. I think teachers need to be appreciated, but we also have a whole lot of not very good teachers who are activists in coming in, and we need to create a competitive environment, and we need to reward good teaching. And so, and the ESA gives the public exactly what they need, which is the right to make decisions which affect the course of their children's educational development. And the public school system is often failing them. And so I think that it's important that they have that choice available, and also that we give the public schools an opportunity to do the job.
John, you want to follow up?
Yeah, very quickly. I'm going to clarify a 1, 2, 3 referral with extra money for teachers' pay is not a clean referral. I supported the concept of extra money for teachers as part of 1, 2, 3 if we did it, but that would not be a clean referral based on what Hank said. The teachers' unions don't want that. They want to have money for other people involved. So that was part of the controversy. And let me just finally say that that Robert's position on 1, 2, 3 is the exact opposite of all the Republicans in both chambers. So maybe you need to look at a different party.
Robert, you want to?
Yeah, I'll just say I don't have a complete understanding of Prop 123, and my understanding is limited. So maybe I shouldn't address that right now.
Okay, we're getting short on time, but there is a question from a voter that's coming in here that I would like to quickly get to if we can. What steps can you take? I know this is a big deal for certain parts of the district to protect dark sky communities and reduce light pollution in order to preserve access to our natural night skies and natural heritage. And Robert, why don't you kick this one off?
Yeah, well, John and myself both live in Fountain Hills here, and we are a dark sky community. And part of what makes that happen is keeping the streetlights, having ordinances on the lighting, the light pollution aspect. I think it's really important that people will be able to see the night sky. I think that is something that in the main city areas that people are missing out on, and I think that has a detrimental effect on human development to not have a connection with the cosmos in that way. Just being able to see the stars is a wonderful experience. Here in Fountain Hills, up in Rio Verde, you can see, it's like Hawaii up there. You can see countless stars. So I would definitely support actions for those areas which are already primed for that kind of visibility into the night sky and protecting what there is to protect as far as light pollution out of their air.
Okay, same to you, John.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yeah, I obviously support dark skies. The dark sky movement in Fountain Hills started when a guy named Joe Bill and his small group began pushing to make Fountain Hills Dark Sky community. And lucky for them, my wife, Linda Kavanaugh, was mayor at the time. And she liked the idea, and she pretty much pushed all the legislation through the town council that made Fountain Hills a dark sky community, which mostly involves changing your lighting so that it's not overly bright and it tends to shine down. So based on her efforts and the efforts of the group, Fountain Hills became one of the few dark sky communities in the U.S., not to mention the world. I contributed to the Dark Skies community because Fountain Hills, this same group was pushing the Dark Skies Discovery Center in Fountain Hills, which will be a planetarium and telescope and educational activities area for school children and adults. And I was able to secure funding for this Dark Skies Center in Fountain Hills, and it's been built, and I think they're going to open it up in the fall, which will be an excellent addition to our overall Dark Skies reputation. So thank you, Joe Bill. Thank you, Mayor Linda Kavanaugh, and all the Dark Skies people.
All right, we're getting towards the end of this hour here, but I do want to squeeze in a couple of rapid fire questions. We'll do something just kind of yes, no, quick answer, take 15 seconds, a short explanation if you must, but please keep it tight. First question, we'll go to you, John, first. Should Donald Trump be allowed to serve a third term as president?
No, and even Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. I mean, first of all, he never could. You could never change the Constitution. But no, I think he's done a phenomenal job. He's not looking for a third term. I think we've got some phenomenal Republicans who are in line to carry on the Trump legacy. So is that 15
Okay.
seconds?
Robert? Third
No.
term?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the Constitution has limited the amount of time that, I mean, this is a term limits thing again. So I respect term limits and the nature of that, the point of that. Yeah, I would just say no.
Okay. Who would have been better for Arizona? And let's go to you first, Robert. Kari Lake or Karen Taylor Robeson as governor?
Kari Lake by a mile, by miles. I love Kari Lake. And she was a true blue grassroots Republican. The groundswell here in Arizona during her run was amazing. It was like nothing I've ever seen, nothing like the country's ever seen. She became a movement. So the support for any other candidate, we've never seen anything that came close to that. There's no way she lost. I think Kari Lake won, and she would have been an amazing governor.
Okay. John, same question. Lake or Robeson? Who did you prefer?
Yeah, I endorse Kari Lake.
Okay. And then I think we got a slice of an answer of the next question, which is, do you feel like your ballot was accurately and correctly counted in the 2020 election? Robert?
No, I don't think well, even if they were, even if mine specifically was, I think that the rest of the false ballots, the questionable ballots that went through, it canceled out so many actual votes. So the net effect of my answer is no, even if mine itself was counted.
Okay. John, faith in the elections system?
I think there are a tremendous number of irregularities that cause a lot of concern and doubt. As to my ballot, I really have no way of knowing.
Tremendous concern and doubt. Where do you fall on this? Do you think that the 2020 election was accurately and fairly called for President Joe Biden, or do you think that Donald Trump won that one?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not prepared to say that the vote count was accurate, but I don't have evidence to prove that it wasn't. But clearly, it was a wake-up call for the need for election security, if not actual security, and also to make sure that the appearance of impropriety doesn't taint elections too.
Okay. Okay, well, we're getting towards the end here. I want to give you each a moment to give your closing comments to the voters. John, you went first, so let's give Robert the final word on this thing. So, John, start off the closing comments, if you will.
Yes, since the age of 15, I have worked to advance conservative causes. When I walked in that doorway to the Conservative Party of New York State, I began a lifetime of conservative activism, advancing the causes of limited government, free markets, low taxes, pro-life and pro-family, anti-illegal immigration, and now, as of late, anti-wokeness, like biological males in school bathrooms and locker rooms and showers and pronouns and all that stuff. Uh, I think my tenure and what I've spoken to this evening shows that I have the knowledge, the experience, and the skill set to represent the people of this district well in the state legislature. On the other hand, based upon discussions we had concerning the beliefs of Robert Wallace, and again, I have them all posted on my website, Weird Wallace. I'm not characterizing what he said. These are his actual posts and actual videos of him speaking. And it wasn't stand-up comedy, although it sounds like it, and it wasn't parodies. It was really bizarre statements. And again, the anti-Semitic thing was pretty bad. And it's important not only because I don't think somebody with those beliefs can represent you properly, but if he were to win the primary and go to the general election and the Democrats were to spend money, and they would, exposing his beliefs to the electorate, we literally could lose LD3 in the general election. And in an election year where it could be close, we could lose the House and the Senate. And if Hobbs was reelected governor, within 6 months, Arizona would be California. Don't make Arizona California. I ask that you vote John Kavanaugh for the state Senate.
Okay, Robert, your final pitch to the voters tonight.
Yes, well, the vast majority of the general public wants a change. We have somebody here who has been on the government payroll for 50 years. He's never held a private sector job. He says he's not a career politician, but he's been between the House and the state and the Senate for almost 20 years. He says it's a side gig, a side passion, but at the same time, because it's almost like a full-time job, he's pushing for the pay raises for the legislators. So I don't know which it is. He says that he's not characterizing anything that he's put on his website about me, but he has mischaracterized everything he's put. He's called Emanuel Swedenborg's beliefs my beliefs. He's called visions and spiritual experiences hallucinations. I mean, there's a skewering, a character assassination attempt by him. So with that said, there's probably countless other things I could say, but we need fresh blood in office. We need somebody who is not entrenched in the system. We don't need more of the same. And that's what I'm going to offer. Somebody who's going to listen to the people, somebody who doesn't have ties to the current establishment. We need to drain the swamp. So you can go to robert4u.com. That's Robert, the number 4, YOU.com, and go to stopkavanaugh.com to learn more about the problems of his policies.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. That concludes tonight's Republican primary debate for Legislative District 3 Senate seat. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with our candidates for the Republican primary for the House of Representatives in this district. To the candidates, thank you so much for making the time to be here. To our voters, thank you for tuning in and informing yourselves ahead of the July 21st primary. For official voter information, please visit azcleanelections.gov, and we'll be back after this short break. Good evening and welcome back to the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Debate for Legislative District 3, the Republican primary. I'm Hank Stevenson, your moderator for tonight. And now we're going to get a chance to hear from two of the four Republican candidates seeking the nomination to the district's 2 seats in the State House of Representatives. The other 2 candidates, George Kaloff and Cody Ream, chose not to be here tonight. In case you need a reminder, LD3 encompasses big parts of northeastern Maricopa County, including Scottsdale, North Phoenix, Fountain Hills, Anthem, Cave Creek, Carefree. And voters, please remember that you vote for 2 state representatives in your district. Candidates, thank you so much for being here. And let's get started with our 90-second opening statements. Prompt is simple. Tell the voters who you are, why you're running, and why they should pick you. Jay, let's start off with you, please.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yes, Jay Schlum, running for Arizona House of Representatives to serve you in the Arizona House for Legislative District 3. And I want to thank the Clean Elections team and Hank, the moderator, and everyone taking time out that wants to elect good people to represent us in our future. I'm Jay Schlum, as I said, and I've called Arizona home for decades, since 1977. My wife Denise and I have been married for 38 years. We've raised 2 kids here, and we're blessed to have 4 grandkids. Arizona is not just where I live, it's where my family's future is. I built a business here, served in our community, and had the honor of serving as the mayor of Fountain Hills, Arizona. In every role I've worked, I've listened, I like to solve problems, and I love to bring good people together. I'm running because Arizona is growing fast, and we need proven, steady leadership that protects what makes our state special. Safe communities, strong schools, economic opportunity, secure water, and the freedom for our families and small businesses to thrive. My approach is simple: limited government, fiscal responsibility, respect for local communities, and collaboration. I believe leaders should be accessible, respectful, and focused on results, not political theater. I'm asking for your vote because I'll bring experience, common sense, and a servant's heart to the state legislature. Arizona is awesome, and together we can keep it that way for our next generations.
Thank you. Okay, Tom, you're up next. Tell the voters about yourself.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you, Clean Elections, and especially thank all you concerned citizens that are looking forward to this debate. It shows me that you care. I'm a retired dentist. I started out from humble beginnings. I put my way through college and then dental school working in factories. After I left dental school, I went to the United States Air Force, practiced as a veteran, practiced as a dentist and captain there, and then went into private practice for 41 years. My wife's a licensed mental health counselor and a teacher. I have 2 children. My daughter's a GI specialist at Mass General. She's gone through a stellar career through college. She's got degrees in microbiology and chemical engineering. My son, dual degrees in mechanical engineering and philosophy, and is a graduate of Arizona State Law School. So what we're saying here is, I've been a family man, I've been a practitioner, I've been a veteran, I've worked for people one-on-one every day. You as a dentist have fiduciary responsibility to care for your patients. I want to bring that same attitude to my work as a state legislator. So what we have is a system right now that's failing us in many ways. We've got rising housing costs. We have costs. The education is taking more and more money, but getting less and less results. We have healthcare systems that seem to be feeding into insurance and into the pharmaceutical industry, as opposed to the doctor and the patient. So what I want to communicate tonight is that I want to work for individuals, people, doctors, dentists, patients, teachers, firefighters, all of the people from the ground level up. Let's take this government back. Right now, our government is bloated. This year, there will be over 2,800 bills that will hit our legislators. They'll have to decide on these bills with 26 weeks. That means they have to process 100 bills a week. Now think about that. Who benefits when you flood all those bills into the legislature? The lobbyists, the special interest groups, not you, the individual. I hope to bring back care and governance that takes care of our people. You will see this theme throughout the night. It's about the people making the system work for us as opposed to the other way around. I can't hear you.
It's always going to happen at least once in these Zoom things.
No
All
problem.
right. Thank you both so much for taking the moment to introduce yourself to the voters. We're going to move on to our first round of questions. But first, a quick reminder, voters watching this can submit a question for the candidates at any time. Debates@kc-a.com if you're emailing, 480-769-9511 if you're texting, or 480-937-1253 if you're calling it in. Operators are standing by. All right, we're going to do a little bit about you questions. Keep it to 60 to 90 seconds each, please. No rebuttals in this round. And Tom, we'll have you go first on the first question, which is, when was the last time members of your own party were angry with you? Tell us what you did or said, and tell us what happened.
Wow, great question. I don't think they've ever been mad at me, not angry. I think that members of my own party have different opinions, and I think those different opinions reflect differently. But one of the things you learn as a dentist is to control the environment. My patients were in pain, in fear, anxiety, and it was my job to communicate with them in a way that decreased their anxiety and their pain and their fear. So when I work with people, that's the primary goal. If they're getting upset, then the conversation is going sideways. And that means that I need to listen more than to speak. Listen to their concerns. So that's a good measure of whether you're doing your job well or not.
Okay. Jay, same question. Remember the last time members of your party were mad at you?
Mad at me. I think all my friends are mad at me at one point or another. But seriously, no. Not really mad. I did get a little sideways with a few, and that's all right. It's certainly fine to disagree. The main thing is to chat about it and understand where each other is coming from, because we can each learn from one another. And that's important only if you want the best solutions for the people around you. And people in the same party, those are the people around you, and generally you're going to agree philosophically on most everything. But how you get there, sometimes you can disagree with. I can recall, it may have been 15, 14 years ago, I was a precinct committeeman here in Fountain Hills, which I hope to do again here very soon. And I supported a person for the school board that apparently was an independent, wasn't registered Republican. I had no idea at the time. It's a nonpartisan race in a nonpartisan town. I had no clue. I knew this guy was a superstar with finance. He probably didn't really know what party he was in either. But I did get sideways with the leadership of the district at that time. So I don't know if that means they got mad at me, but you know, they told me I shouldn't do that. But it was a good guy, a great person for our school district at that time. So I don't regret doing that. But going forward, it's a lot more clear who's a Republican, who's a Democrat, and who isn't these days, for better or for worse. But that's what comes to mind.
Okay. Jay, let's have you field this one first. Name a member of the opposite party that you actually respect, a politician, a Democratic politician, and what do you respect about them?
Thank you. Boy, all those Democratic politicians that are now Republicans, those come to mind. But no, seriously, let me think here. We work in a town government. We're nonpartisan here in Fountain Hills, so a lot of times you don't even know what party folks are in. But let's see if I can think of Democrat, if that's the opposite of a Republican or the other party, as mayor, we had and as a council member, we had a program called the Greening of Downtown Fountain Hills, and we worked alongside Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and frankly, probably didn't even know the parties of each, working on projects that were of common interest. Our downtown had a bunch of vacant lots, and we wanted them to look a little bit better, a little more vibrant. So we worked alongside folks that I know are Democrats now and Republicans and everybody from every walk of life. And we got some really good things done. Even came up with a jivey song and a dance with folks. So there are so many things that we agree on. It's quite often how we approach those issues that we can get a little bit sideways with one another.
Okay, I don't think I heard a name there.
Yeah, well, I don't want to name people. They're not really public figures, but maybe I'll think of a public figure that's a Democrat that I respect, although I don't know if I know any elected Democrats that really well myself, but thank you for asking.
Okay, how about you, Tom?
Well, first of all, a name popped up to my mind real quickly. It was John Fetterman. I also want to say that he may be a Republican that just doesn't know it. But interestingly enough, we've had a lot of Democrats make a shift. You've seen RFK Jr. make the shift. You've seen a massive reception welcoming him. I was there the day he showed on stage in Glendale with President Trump. It was an iconic moment, to say the least. It was very moving. We've got Tulsi Gabbard. Andrew Yang left the party. There's been more and more Democrats leaving the party. So when you look at who's out there, the only name that comes to my mind is John Fetterman, even though it's on a federal level. His values seem to line up pretty nicely with the current administration.
Okay. Tom, let's go back to you for the first one. First response here. Outside of raising your family, if that's applicable, what's something you've built, started, or led that you're truly proud of? And what did that experience teach you?
Great question. Thank you so much. There's an organization that I helped form. It was through my profession. I was treating patients in the mornings with craniofacial pain and headaches, TMJ problems, sleep apnea. What I saw over and over again was a pattern that I didn't like. It was an abnormal growth pattern. And it hit me and other scholars that I work with and lectured with that this started at a very young age. So we started a facial growth organization to teach dentists and physicians and speech therapists how to help kids grow properly. That meant we had to do prenatal counseling, breastfeeding. We had to teach doctors the timeline for growth and development with kids. It's extremely rewarding because over time, we follow these kids for 20 years. They develop large, broad smiles, beautiful facial bones, large airways, which allowed them to go into deep REM sleep and slow wave sleep, where your brain develops cognitive thinking, where your body heals itself, forming growth hormones and serotonin, which makes you feel well-being. And these kids developed high IQs and they were very athletic. And that experience working with those kids was unbelievable. And it set me on a whole new course in my practice. And it's formulated some of my opinions about medical care and prevention as opposed to intervention at later times when we're spending a lot of money in healthcare. We can save costs if we start early, do preventive care. So that facial growth organization was I'm extremely proud of that movement.
Okay. Same question to you, Jay. Outside of family, what are you most proud of building, leading, being a part of in your life?
Thank you very much. Example of my mom and dad is leading and working with others on projects that get things done. I've been fortunate to lead a church. I've been fortunate to lead our Rotary. I've been fortunate to lead a Little League. I've been fortunate to lead an HOA. So, I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities to lead in each one. I work to bring people together to improve our outcomes, and they've all been successful. Also in the business world, I ran a program in a corporate nature around 14 states, and we were successful as well. What comes to mind is my leadership as mayor of Fountain Hills, and it was soon after I became mayor that we had a controversy. Unfortunately, there were some folks that ended up putting some swastikas and some nasty KKK type things on some some garage doors and cars around our town in Fountain Hills. And it outraged our entire community because we are known to be a loving, welcoming community. And I had to figure out how to help bring our community together to deal with this in a way that was authentic and good, and also obviously lifted up and held dear those victims that were shaken to the core. One of them was a survivor of the Holocaust. And so I was told by several good folks to just let this go. Let it go. It'll take care of itself. Rather, and what I've learned from being in leadership is you don't do that. You be measured about how you deal with things, but you run right at those issues. That's the best way to get through them and to get through them in a healthy way. So I called the community together. We did a gathering, a community gathering. People were concerned that we'd have protesters out there from the KKK or other, evil-doing organizations. And fortunately, we did not. We had hundreds of people in our community come together, and I invited those that were impacted to come together. They didn't think anybody would come. We had a stage set up. It wasn't theater. It was really love. And so we came together, and we had a lot of folks in the organization, including pastors and others, show these people how much we cared for them and how sorry we were that this occurred. And they felt tremendous. It didn't take away what happened to them, but they realized that the people who live next door around the corner would not tolerate this and came together to show their love for them and their appreciation for them. So that's what comes to mind as a leader in a variety of different roles. That one example, more than any, is closest to my heart.
Okay. Okay, let's turn to the core of tonight's debate, some of these policy questions. Just to reiterate, each of you will get 90 seconds to respond. And then after both of you have spoken, I'll open up a rebuttal window in case anyone wants to jump in to add to their response or talk about the other candidate's response. First question, let's talk a little bit about immigration. This is top of the polls for Republican primary voters. And I want to ask, Arizona's construction, agriculture, hospitality, and many other industries employ tens of thousands of undocumented workers. Would you vote to more aggressively enforce E-Verify against Arizona employers, knowing that that means potential labor shortages, higher prices for groceries and homes, and small businesses closing across your district? And Tom, let's start off with you first.
Thank you. So if you elect me, I will be a legislator. It'll be my duty to legislate, produce laws that are in keeping with our constitutions, this federal and the state constitution. Currently, illegal aliens are just that, illegal aliens. When you fill out as an employer an I-9 form, you have to attest to the government that your employee with two forms of identification is a citizen, a legal citizen. If you fail to do that, you put yourself at risk for fines, you put your business at risk, and at the same time, you're violating the law, which you can be fined for. So as a legislator, I need to stand behind our laws, and we need to solve problems legally as opposed to illegally. So to turn a blind eye to violations of the law is absolutely irresponsible. I see no reason at all to placate. There are laws on the books, and if you want to create laws that straightforward allow citizens to legally come to this country, get legal visas, work visas, green cards. I'm all for that. I hired an employee who was a non-citizen. She got a social security number. She got a green card. We documented her. I told her from the first day she started with me, if you want to live in this country, go get your citizenship. Took her 8 years. 8 years. And we followed and helped her when she needed to get off work to go down to immigration and fill out forms for background checks, for knowledge of the laws, for knowledge of the language. We gave her the time off. After 8 years, she became a US citizen and we had a major party. If you're asking me the question, the answer is we need to make it straightforward for people to come to this country. And a lot of people don't know this, but one of the very first things Donald Trump did in 2016 when he was elected was call in a commission. He brought in Republican and Democrat leaders and said, I want a straight path to citizenship. And both parties shot that down. So that's where I stand. Mike.
Same question
Okay.
to you, Jay, and I'll just give you a heads up. You are currently muted.
Thanks, Hank. I'm definitely a law and order guy. And it seems like when we try to do things that to try to help other people through legislation, through laws, by making things easier for more people to come in, or perhaps just turn a blind eye to people streaming into this country, it doesn't help anybody. So we have made great progress, and we have millions of people here that are undocumented illegal aliens that need to go back. And there's no question about that. As far as cost increases, if there are cost increases, that's a cost that we're going to have to live with in order to have a country of law and order. Cost is not just in paying people or buying groceries. There's other costs. When you don't follow the rules, there are other costs and things that impact us negatively as well. Right now, there's so many folks that have come in. It's not the melting pot. It's not people becoming Americans. It's people living in little communities of their country. And that's not benefiting them, and it's not benefiting us. We don't have open borders. We have law and order, and we have a process to go through. And I love Tom's story. That is such a cool one. A friend of mine just went through the interview process after being here for years, and she says she just passed. And this was just the day before yesterday, Tom. And so that's such a wonderful thing. And why celebrate someone becoming an American when you can simply just overlook it and just let them be here without being a citizen? Because there's benefits to it. There's law and order. There are lots of benefits to keeping an immigration system that's worked for hundreds of years. Now, as times change, as Tom alluded to as well, we may need to tweak some things. We need to be open-minded and have a dialogue with all parties that might be impacted, but don't be foolish to thinking that just by being what might be considered nice is going to be beneficial to anyone, because it's often not.
Okay. Any response?
Well, I think
Okay,
we're
we
on
can-
both sides. We're
Yep.
on the same side of this issue pretty well.
Well,
And
let's
that's a pretty
Right.
much Republican side. So everyone has to learn how to run their business the best way possible legally. And I agree with Jay.
Okay. Let's talk water. This is a question from a voter who's watching. Simply, what can be done to improve the quality of our water? And Jay, why don't you take this one on first?
Sure, thank you. So mention quality in particular. I think more people are interested in quantity, and are we going to have water? That's been a topic of discussion, and particularly with our governor being in court and having her rules struck down from the administrative side that limited some development of single-family homes recently. But in speaking of quality, interestingly, right after college, I was an intern at Arizona Department of Environmental Quality way back in the day, and we worked with a bunch of hydrologists and went and tested wells all around our state, and had to test for all the different things, including pH and the quality of water. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. What I also realized in working with those hydrologists and other leaders within that department, and also within the Department of Water Resources, that Arizona has a great deal of water, but it's not always where we need it. Hence the CAP, moving water from the Colorado, huge billions of dollar project back in that time. We're going to have to consider those things as well. As far as testing the quality of water, there are regulations currently today that require our water providers to test their water and have it assessed. So that needs to continue. Clean water is certainly important. If there are issues, we need to hit those head on and figure out what the best solution is, not only in a punitive way against a water provider, but in order to provide the clean water to the residents in the areas that they serve. It's a team effort. Water is important in Arizona. We need leaders that are going to make sure we have sustainable water for our next generations.
Okay, Tom, same to you. What can be done to improve the quality of our water?
Well, interestingly enough, if you look at the quality reports that come back from Scottsdale and various cities across the state, the water quality is quite good. The quantity is a more of an issue. We know that nature fixes water. We know that water that's pumped from deep wells is healthier. It's been through the biologic system. It's been processed. It's the bacteria replenish the water. So that is where the water should come from, ideally. Yes, we have water coming down the Colorado River, and the supply is a concern, but the quality at this point hasn't been. Now, if we shift and we start utilizing reprocessed water, we're going to need to change our tune here a little bit. We're going to need to look closely at what we're doing with that water. The best way is to reprocess water, deep well inject it, replenish the water that's coming from below the ground, and utilize that water as much as possible. And I believe that we can also focus on two types of water, gray water, if you will, and pure water. Pure water for homes, but we can use water that's not quite as pure for industrial purposes and not drain off good water for bad purposes. So manufacturing doesn't need the same quality of water as our drinking water, as our home water that we utilize. But currently, our quality is quite good.
Okay. Since you both brought up quantity, and I think, Tom, you were just talking about different types of groundwater. Out-of-state, foreign-owned mega farms have pumped groundwater dry in large parts of Arizona. Do you think Arizona as a state should vote to cap their pumping, even if it means some of those farms will leave Arizona? And
yeah,
Tom?
We need to look at this very closely. Because about 70% of the water that's processed and utilized in this state is utilized by the farming industry, much of it going to alfalfa that gets shipped off to Saudi Arabia for horse feed. Now, one of the reasons we have so much agriculture is because our land is relatively inexpensive, but our water is a much more difficult commodity to come by. So we have to balance the usage of water for people versus for manufacturing purposes and for agricultural purposes. So if we get to a point where there's a shortage, there will have to be a rebalancing. There are states that have land and water where agriculture will work. So we're not the only state in the nation where agriculture can produce products. We just happen to be one of the cheaper states, and that's why they gravitate to us. So when you go to a more expensive state where taxes are higher, operational costs are higher, they don't want to go there. They want to come where it's the cheapest possible place. And we need to level that playing field so that our agriculture distributes itself more evenly across the country. I'm not against agriculture, and it's not an immediate crisis, but I'm in favor of looking at some things that will make agriculture pay their fair share.
Okay. And Jay, same question. Is this an immediate crisis? And if so, what's your solution to the fact that there are huge out of state, out of country, agricultural operations that pump endlessly from our aquifers?
Thank you. Yeah. if this is occurring, and obviously once I'm in the legislature, it's going to be a responsibility of mine to make sure I understand what the issues are and the challenges. That needs to stop. So I'm not sure if it's a function of the Department of Water Resources monitoring wells and the well usage and the aquifer levels more tightly, or if the owner or the user, the lessor of that property, believes they have, or if they have the rights to pump an aquifer dry. I just can't see that being realistic. As far as it being a foreign company shipping items overseas, that seems outrageous if we're utilizing all the water so that it can't be used for citizens within this country. So laws may need to be changed in that respect. I believe some of those leases were canceled once they got a lot of airtime a couple of years ago. So I hope that's the case going forward. But if it's a issue that's continuing, then that's something we need to jump right on. Generally, we need leaders in Arizona to make sure we've got water and then to make sure that it's going to be here for years to go. And it's, of course, good quality. One thing that I also learned about our hydrology, and it's something we don't think about, is that water and throughout the world, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go to outer space. It just moves. It either evaporates or it goes in the ground or it moves through a river or in an ocean. There's still water there. It's just not always where we need it. So it could be a capital function of having to have systems, like I mentioned, the CAP, other systems that can bring water that's reliable and necessary for us to continue to grow. Also, I've heard, and I'm not sure this is quantified, but 50 years ago, we were using more water than we are today. Seems crazy, but perhaps that's because there was more agriculture back then, which would make more sense because homes use much less water than agriculture. But in the bottom line, we need leaders. We can't just complain about these water issues. We need to have leaders that get ahead of it, working with intelligent people to make sure it's something we're not having to react to or fight the headlines of the New York Times on. That's the perception is equally as bad. So we need to make sure our leaders are out in front of this. It's critical in Arizona. Water is very important, obviously.
Okay. Let's move on to elections. This is another one that shows up on the, top of basically any poll asking Republican voters what is important to them. I want to ask about mail-in voting because this has been a, huge topic of contention here in Arizona, especially because we have a very old and very widely used no excuse mail-in voting law. Should we change that law? Do you think our mail-in voting system now is secure, or do you think that we need to make changes to ensure that it is secure? And if so, what do you propose? And Tom, why don't we start with you?
Well, thank you. So we talk about elections of being on election day, voting day. We've expanded our elections. We've expanded them over 3 or 4 weeks. We've opened it up to mail-in ballots. Along with that, we have drop-off ballots. And then we have election day itself. If you follow True the Vote, they've been following and identifying critical points that are failing along the way. So if we want to continue to have mail-in ballots, we have to secure those. Now, we've seen some things that have happened recently. We had a recorder who was suspicious. The voters were unhappy with this. We elected Justin Heap in Maricopa County. He took office in November. In December, the pre-existing recorder changed the process and took mail-in ballots away from the incoming recorder. That case went to lawsuit. Justin Heap was sworn in January, and then he had to fight to get the mail-in ballot system back in Maricopa County. He won the case. Thank goodness that he was able to win and prevail in this battle. But it should underscore and warn us about what's happening. So in making the process easier for everyone, I'm all for making it more secure. So I'm not against mail-in ballots, but I think along with freedoms come responsibility. And if we have an elected official who's overseeing our elections that's not doing a good job, he needs to be removed by the voters, and we need to continue on the right track with the right people.
Okay. Same to you, Jay.
Thanks. Yeah, voter integrity, election integrity is critical. One, we need to make sure that if there are voters that are on the voting rolls that are no longer living or are no longer in this state, they need to be removed. And I understand Justin Heaps in the county of Maricopa, and hopefully with the other county recorders, has made some great strides in cleaning up the voter rolls for folks that should not be receiving a mail-in ballot automatically. For those in Arizona that are snowbirds, but are Arizona residents, it looks like we made some improvements to get them their ballots where they're going to be, especially in this important primary, July 21st, that they get their ballots where they're going to be located so that they can get those back. When I was mayor, perhaps I was on council, that's when we moved to mail-in ballots. The whole county was moving to it, so we were kind of pressured into doing that because our cost was going to go up a great deal. But there was also a lot of talk about the convenience and the increased number of people that would participate. And that has obviously occurred with mail-in ballots. So I liked that idea. We didn't expect to have so many questions regarding um, ballot harvesting and that sort of thing. And in the last couple of years, we've all seen in the news and investigative reports people coming to these voting places with thick piles of envelopes, uh, putting them in the boxes or in the mail-in box. We did wherever that occurs, we need to not just turn our head and say, "Don't look over there. Everything is fine." We need to look into every issue. And that's similar with most everything. If there are people that are breaking the rules, particularly around election integrity, we need to be able to come down on them quickly. We also need to get our ballots counted more quickly when it comes to the election. We don't want to be like we have been, the laughing stock of the nation, waiting 10 days or whatever it's been until we can actually say who won what election, especially being a quote unquote swing state here. Thank goodness the presidential election was not close, but if it were, it'd been a disaster, which also leads to the perception, which is almost as important as the reality when it comes to voter confidence. We need voters to be confident. We need us to make sure that we have a valid election here in Arizona that can reflect upon the entire country. And we're smart enough to be able to do that. There are other states that have done it that I think we're learning from. And I think one of the things that we could do is to make sure that ballots aren't dropped off at the last minute, which throws, I think, the recorder and everyone in the elections department into a tizzy, which makes sense. So there needs to be some tweaks that are made, obviously.
Okay. Let me ask a follow-up question to that one. Do you believe that the 2020 and 2022 elections were free, fair, and accurately counted? And let's go back to you first, Jay.
Thanks. Well, there's certainly a lot of room for improvement. So counted accurately, I'm sure they weren't. Were they off enough to have made a difference? I sure hope not. But that's why things need to continue to be improved. What I would love to see, and I brought this up to um, an election official several years ago, is they started to let you know that your ballot was received, right? More recently, I don't know if that's just Maricopa County, but you'd get a notification, yeah, we received your ballot. Great. Like other things, you can log into your MVD, you can look at your records, you have a confidential proprietary login system where you can see your records, other people can't see your records. I'm not sure if it's going to come to the need to do that, but is there a way for us to go and see how our actual vote was counted? Not that it was just received. Obviously, things are being tabulated. They go into a digital system, a computer system, and they get tabulated further and gathered and brought up to the national level for the president and so on. It would be nice if there was an easy way for us each individually with security to be able to make sure that our votes weren't always just received, but were tabulated the way that we intended and voted on the election form. So that's one thought. But every step we go through, everywhere we find an issue, with people now observing things more often, we'll probably uncover potential issues. But we certainly can't have ballots showing up in the back of a vehicle's trunk at the 12th hour and unloading a ton of ballots. That's just got trouble written all over it. So, election integrity needs to continue. And as far as the prior elections, we need to learn from them, and we need to get better every time we have another election.
Tom, what about you? Do you think the 2020 election specifically was free, fair, accurately counted?
Well, I think you got to break this down by state. So if you're saying in Arizona, that's one thing. If you're saying other states,
Let's say
that's another
Arizona.
thing. So if we're specifically referring to Arizona, we know that there are discrepancies. We know that things happen that defy the odds, but we don't have proof. And therein lies the problem. Anyone that stands in the way of proof is working against election integrity. So the way I see it, we can't definitively say the 22 or the 20 election were thrown in the state of Arizona, but we can definitively say there were roadblocks put up along the way to get to the bottom of this. So what we need is a very good system that secures everything. We've got the EPM, Election Procedures Manual, that's written by the Secretary of State. We go through that, we find all kinds of discrepancies, and then we report it. Alex Collin has sued Adrian Fontes numerous times, and he's won. So we know there's trouble. But when you come down to the vote, who knows when it takes 2.5 weeks to get the result back, just what's happening behind closed doors. So as an elected official, I can only act on what I can see and what we can prove. So what I stand for is getting the proof and getting the process where we can uncover where the problems are, identify them, and solve them. That might mean regime change, which is what I'm campaigning for heavily. I think we need a different governor. I think we need a different Secretary of State. And I think we need a different Attorney General who would take more action if this wasn't so partisan.
Okay. All right, I want to ask about Prop 123. This is a funding mechanism for Arizona schools that expired last year. It has become a political football, as you heard if you were listening to the earlier portion of our debate with the Senate candidates. And I want to know if the two of you would vote to send a clean renewal of Prop 123 to the voters if you were elected to the State House. And sorry, Tom, why don't we go with you first this time?
Thank you. So, yes, clean is the operative word here. I think if we can create cash flow that's going to go to our schools and supervise what that cash flow does, I would support that. But here's the situation. We spend a lot of money on schools right now. Right now, we're 26th in the nation on how much we spend per student in education, but we're performance-wise 50th. Now let's wrap our heads around that. Our charter schools are 13th in the nation. Let's go to Utah. Utah schools, they spend the least amount of money per student, 50th in the nation, yet their public schools are ranked 11th. So what we have here is a problem of supervising where the funds are going. If we just keep throwing money at education without solving the underlying problems, that's not a solution. So 1, 2, 3 is part of the solution, but it is not the solution. Why does Utah have a higher quality of education at a much lower rate? And the answer is people are involved in their communities, their churches, their schools. They go to the schools. Education is about student, teacher, curriculum, and parent. So while we're supporting more funding for the schools, we need to support more classroom dollars, less administrative dollars, and results. We get a failing grade in education right now, and I'm against throwing money at a system that's failing. People say the ESAs are taking money away from the public schools, but the numbers don't justify that. The ESAs are giving parents a chance to put their students where they want to get a better education, forcing competition. And so I'm in 100% support of ESAs. And I'm in 100% support of teacher salaries, because they're coming out of school with high tuition and high tuition costs, high school loans, and they need to be paid well. But we need to test. I'm not talking about grueling tests for each student. I'm talking about tests that simply identify what grade level they're at when they start, as they progress, when they finish. If they're at proper grade level, they pass. If they're not, they don't pass. They go to summer school. And if the majority of the kids in the classroom are not performing well, then the teacher goes to summer school. And if the
Okay.
teacher doesn't,
We covered a lot of ground there, Tom, but I don't think I heard a straight answer on yes or no on a clean renewal of Prop 1.
I said yes right from the beginning. 1, 2,
Okay.
3, clean was the definitive part. Yes, I'm in support of it, but the money has to be supervised.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Jay, same question to you.
Thanks. Once I can look at things, I'll consider it. I'm always open for dialogue, but I don't think we need to tax people more, even if it's on a ballot initiative. I would not be in favor of bringing more money in to our government. I think our government is bloated as it is. I think we're going to find money through, in essence, a doging of our state. And we're going to, where money is desired or needed, it can be moved there, or we can reduce the burden upon our citizens. Our school districts are hundreds of school districts, tons of administration. We all want what's best for our kids. We want them to get the greatest education that we can possibly give them. We want to do that for a reasonable cost, and we want to have accountability. So I'm not for taxing more. I think there's plenty of money in the budget to get our kids educated properly. I'm really encouraged by what I'm learning about the ESA program and putting parents more directly in charge of, and much more efficiently, delivering what they feel is best education for their kids. Also with that, we've also read about a lot of, potentially for opportunities for fraud. So I think those have been proven not to be the case as much, but they're going to come up. When that occurs, we cannot be passive about that. We need to be very strict about any public dollar, regardless of it being in an ESA or going to foster care or wherever it might be going. Public dollars need to be highly accountable, but I am against additional taxation for our citizens. And at this time, I would not be in favor of that. From what I understand, the state has continued to fund at those same levels, even with the expiration of that 1, 2, 3. So I'd want to look at that just as I'd want to look at every budget item to make sure it's serving us well. And they're in public schools are still the majority where our kids are going. So we can't take our eye off the ball. Like Tom mentioned, we're not succeeding in public education for our kids. Is it a function of funding? It does not appear to be. Perhaps it's in part that, but we need to make sure we've got the best people looking into this, emulating what's working in other states and other areas, and make sure that our kids are benefiting from the best education program that we can deliver.
Okay. Well, we are running a little bit short on time, so let's move on to a quick rapid fire round here. Jay, why don't you field the first one, and Tom, I'll have you field the second one first. First question is, should Donald Trump be allowed to serve a third term as president? Jay?
Thank you. No.
Tom?
Our Constitution doesn't provide for that. I support our Constitution, 2 terms. If 4/5 of the states want to change that, ratify and amend our Constitution, that's fine. But again, Donald Trump has no intentions of taking on a third term. He jokes about it, but it's a joke. No.
Okay. Tom, let's go to you first on this one. Karen Taylor Robson or Carrie Lake? Who would have been better for Arizona?
Wow, Karen Taylor Robeson's got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. That said, Carrie Lake has been a great voice for the people. So while I know and have spoken with both of them, I would have to run my support to Carrie Lake. I think she will be a better candidate as time goes by. I think she's learning very rapidly in the Trump administration, and so I would support Carrie Lake.
Okay. Jay, same to you.
Sure, thanks. Both awesome community leaders coming from different backgrounds. Both would have been terrific. I supported Carrie Lake.
Okay. Tell us your favorite restaurant in the district. Jay?
Oh my gosh.
Where do you eat in
The
LD3?
district. Well,
This is going to be a divisive one.
yeah, I know. We're going to make some people upset here. Boy, depends what you're hungry for, of course. And I like views. So in Fountain Hills, there's a place called Cielo at Adero. And although the menu changes a lot, the views are, you're literally on top of the world. Looking out over the greatest town in the world, Fountain Hills, Arizona, with the Verde River beyond it and Four Peaks beyond that, and the Superstitions on one direction, Red Mountain the other, Mount Ord, and the McDowell's to your side. It is spectacular. So there's so many great food restaurants in and around the district. But if I had to pick one, that's kind of my go-to, especially if I've got people visiting from out of town.
How about you, Tom? Where can you be spotted if not on the campaign trail? Where do you get your trail
Wow.
snacks?
You're really setting us up with this question. There's like a million restaurants that are all great, and we're going to pick one. So now we're going to alienate all of these people over one restaurant. And I guess it comes down to food quality, style, and all of that. But my wife's part Italian and part Slovenian, so she's both her and I enjoy Vito's, primarily because I'm a connoisseur of calamari and Italian food, and so is my wife. So we like Vito's, but I'll tell you what, I just hate to even answer that question because we go out to dinner at many places and there's phenomenal restaurants all over.
I ask about election security, immigration, water security. Nobody bats an eye, but you bring up the best restaurant in Paradise Valley and candidates start losing it. Okay, guys, we've got to wind this up. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight. Take a moment, a minute and a half each if you can, to just reiterate your pitch to the voters. Why should they vote for you? And Jay, you opened, so why don't you close first?
Sounds good. Thanks, Hank. And thanks for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to run for this office. I just love Arizona. I love the people here, and our best days are ahead. And I'm running because I believe in Arizona. It's still one of the greatest places in America to live, work, play, and raise a family, build a business, and pursue opportunities. But we cannot take that for granted. My wife Denise and I, as I said, we're married 38 years. We've got 2 kids, 4 grandkids. So when I think about the future of Arizona, it's very personal to me. I'm looking for the next generation. As I served as mayor in our great town, I learned that good leadership starts with listening, respecting all people, solving problems, and remembering that public service is about people, not politics. I believe in limited government, government that protects freedom, respects taxpayers, empowers individuals, families, and businesses to thrive here in this great state of Arizona. That means safe communities, strong schools, parental choice, responsible growth, protecting our water future, and keeping Arizona affordable. I also believe we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that we should work together wherever possible to move Arizona forward. My commitment is simple, and I will be accessible. I will listen. I will work hard, and I will fight for you, the great citizens of this state of Arizona in our legislative District 3. And I'll always remember who I serve. I would be honored to earn your vote. And as I like to say, Arizona is awesome, and together we can keep it that way. So I ask everyone to please consider giving me one of your 2 votes for Jay Schlum, Arizona House of Representatives for LD3. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Tom, final word goes to you.
Thank you. At the beginning, I talked about people, talked about students, teachers, curriculum, parents, firefighters, first responders, police, sheriffs, talked about our emergency crew, ambulance crews, hospitals, doctors, patients, paramedical people, and people all across the state. But in LD3, I represent those people, and I will vote for them as they wish. My background has been a lifetime of leadership experiences in the Air Force. I was on the Air Transportable Hospital. I ran the dental section. We were a mobile unit, much like MASH. I ran a hospital dental clinic. We were in charge of all the flight personnel. They all had to come through the hospital and check. Every person has to be checked for flying status. I went into private practice. I was a leader there. I was on the board of the Red Cross, American Cancer Society. I was in Kiwanis. We raised a lot of funds for charities. I was also the vice president of a merchants association for the local merchants. I've worked as a senior instructor in the International Association for Orthodontics, treated patients over the years, raised two wonderful kids that I'm proud of and have completely given back to this community in their professions. My wife's a teacher and a licensed mental health counselor. So it's always been about the people. I want to bring my leadership, my skills in education, in healthcare, in business to the legislature. There are a lot of bills that go pouring through that legislature, and we need people that can sort through what's fact and what's fiction, what's waste and what's accurately spent. And I think my years in practice, in business, and in the community activities that I've participated in allow me to be able to sort out what bills should be passed, what bills should be eliminated, and what bills should never reach the governor's office. I ask for your support. You can go to tomwalshaz.com, look at my credentials, look at my experiences. I think what we need is leadership and people with special knowledge that can help this state. And I have a diverse background in knowledge. So please consider voting for me. And if you will, donate to my campaign if you believe in me. Thank you.
Great. Well, that concludes tonight's Republican primary debate for Legislative District 3. Thank you so much to the two of you for making the time to be here. Not every candidate did, and I'm sure the voters really appreciate you taking the time to give them the opportunity to hear directly from you. To the voters who tuned in tonight or at any point during, live streaming this, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, to inform yourself ahead of the July 21st primary. And for more official voter information, please visit azcleanelections.gov. Thank you both so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Hank.
Take care.